I appreciate you guys giving me the opportunity to share this with you today. It's something that most of us don't think about a lot. I want to start out with why I believe managing and controlling your personal brand is critical in your business life. A lot of us just sort of don't think about it. We really don't know what it means. We'll go into the definition of it. I want to show you why I believe it's critical, particularly now. The next thing I want to talk about is what sort of a brand should you develop? And my recommendation is that you work to position yourself as what I call the generous educator, sincere advocate, and trusted authority in your space. And your space is your industry and your local area. Now, if you sell your products and services nationwide or worldwide, that changes that. But it's been my experience that most of us in these types of local networking groups do work locally primarily. And so I'm also going to focus on that. Finally, when you're being the generous educator and sincere advocate, et cetera, the way you're doing that is by sharing your knowledge freely. And I will explain that in detail. But the question arises, what am I going to share? What could I possibly share that anybody would be interested in, particularly if I'm going to do it on a regular basis? And how am I going to share that? And I realize that we're all short of time, and each of us has a different level of skill when it comes to social media and email marketing, blogging, that kind of thing. I get that. But I have, through the years, put together some systems that make it easy for you to know what to share and how to share it. So I want to start, as I mentioned, by describing why this is important. Now, I often hear from people, particularly business owners who are in the business-to-business space, that my customers aren't on Facebook, come on. And my customers aren't wasting time on Instagram and LinkedIn and watching YouTube videos. And my customers make decisions based on referrals. They really don't spend time doing online research, and they don't expect me to be there. I mean, why would they? You know, I'm a divorce attorney. Everybody knows what I do. Why would they expect that they're going to find a lot of information online, not so much about me, but from me? That just doesn't make sense, and it doesn't sound like something that I want to put a lot of time into. Well, I beg to differ. The fact is that your customers do search online for solution providers. And I refer to each of us as a solution provider because that's what we do in our business. We solve problems for our customers. And what our customers are looking for, and it was interesting, you talked about staging. It's a great example. The seller might not really even know what staging is or think that that's something they want. It's certainly not something they want to spend $4,000 on. But what they do want is for their home to sell quickly and for the highest price. So that's their need, that's their problem. Staging is part of the solution. But oftentimes they wouldn't know that if they hadn't been educated to that fact by, let's say, the realtor and the stager. People also do compare alternatives. Now, I will talk in a little while about what I call professional SEO, which means what do people find when they look up your name? Many of us think that SEO is not a worthwhile investment of our time or treasure because it's so competitive out there. How could we possibly hope to rise to the top of the search engine results in a competitive field like ours? Well, you may well be right about that. And the solution that I offer to that is pay to advertise. The way I look at it is you can either pay Google or you can work for Google. And paying Google is advertising, working for Google is creating search engine friendly content. But what about this? What about if we weren't thinking about rising to the top of the search engine, but instead we were thinking about what will people see when they search on my name? And how will I look in comparison to another attorney they're considering? And finally, the fact is that people are making purchase decisions online. We know it, but especially now, people are buying more and more online. And it's not just things from Amazon. It's also high-end, high-ticket products and services. As I mentioned, now it's more critical than ever. There are so many fewer in-person meetings that we're able to engage in. We can't start the know, like, and trust process the way we always used to, which was primarily in person, especially again, for product and service providers in a local area. The pandemic has accelerated many trends that were already ongoing, like work from home, but certainly online purchasing and online research that I was just talking about. We have a lot more time at home and we have a lot more screens. We got tablets and phones and our television in the room we can even use as a search device. The way I put it here at the end is you can either be there or be square. The real world, the physical world, is not as important as it was just a short 1 year ago. It's more important than ever for you to take charge of your professional brand online. So, what exactly is your professional brand? We have a limited amount of time here, so I'm not going to go into a long treatise on branding, but I want to give you a perspective on this that you might not have thought of before. Throughout the centuries, we have been identified by what it is that we do for a living. You may not be able to read what this says, but it lists all sorts of names, and I cut it off here. Smith, Potter, Cooper, Mason, Taylor, Spinner, Weaver, Webb, Webster, Dyer, Thatcher, etc. These were names of professions. The guy in the picture is a smith. He's a blacksmith. And to this day, those names have stuck, and we call people Smith and Taylor, etc. So from a very early point in humanity, we have identified each other based upon what we do for a living and what the other person does. Now, what about today? Today, and you see here, I use the names Weaver, Smith, Miller, etc. It's your name plus what you do. Attorney, electrician, so forth. And really, when you think about it, it's how you would be identified if you were in a police report. Frank Felker, 62, digital media positioning owner, was found, et cetera. That's the way they do it. It's your name, it's your age, it's your profession. We still identify you as what it is that you do for a living. Now, again, we may know even that you're a divorce attorney, but we may not know that you only represent women. We may know that you are a mortgage banker, but we may not know that you specialize in helping entrepreneurs get mortgages because their financial statements are always a lot more complicated and less attractive to the mortgage companies. We may know that you are a chiropractor, but we may not know that you specialize in helping women who are pregnant reduce their discomfort both before and after they give birth through a series of stretching exercises. You may think that people know what you do. You are probably mistaken. They probably do not. Now, the real question today is, who are you online? Being that I can't meet with you and I don't see you speak at a presentation and in front of a group, or I don't run into you at the grocery store, what have you. The only way that I can really find out more about you, if I'd like to, is online. Now, I understand that, being online, there's a lot of difficulties associated with it, and I will address that. But I want to hammer home this point. Again, when I highly recommend that after this presentation, you Google yourself and do it using what's called an incognito window or whatever. Make sure you're not signed into your Google account so that it doesn't just present to you what Google wants to present to you about you. You'll be interested what you find. I'm not referring to online reputation here. I'm talking about straight content, places where your name appeared, places where your opinions were referenced. On Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, do we find anything there? If we do find anything there, is it something that really does a great job of reinforcing who you are, what you do, specifically what you do, your specialties, your special sauce? Probably not, is what I would venture to guess. So I want to close this section of the presentation by re-emphasizing that you have an online professional brand, whether you like it or not. Being non-existent is also one. If you feel that people don't expect you to be there, you would be surprised to learn that they'll be surprised not to find you there. It's sort of expected that you have a fairly, even if it's only an inch deep, a fairly broad presence across multiple social media, website, etc. And if you don't, people wonder why not. And that this is serious, particularly now with the COVID pandemic. Now, here's the good news. Unlike in years past, where it was really hard to elevate your brand, like trying to get interviewed on the radio or the newspaper or television or what have you, this is all under your control right now, if you choose to invest the time, trouble, and treasure into making it happen. If you begin to follow the advice that I'm going to offer later in this presentation, you will begin to appear in these search results, and you will begin to become, your personal and professional brand will be much higher elevated in the marketplace. One of the beauties of this is that you can target exactly the people you want to target geographically, demographically, psychographically. I'm sorry to be dropping all these buzzwords, but you can get extremely targeted with your information, and you can match the information with the trouble that that targeted audience is having. So how do you do that? I want to start by talking about how you should, in what way you should position yourself. And again, I talk about the generous educator, sincere advocate, and trusted authority. And this is what I mean. As a generous educator, you freely share your knowledge. And by that, I really mean free. You create videos, you do blog posts, you do social media posts, you share information through email. Linda's been a fairly long time subscriber to my weekly email blasts, and she can tell you that every week I send out a marketing tip. And this week I sent out a marketing tip about presentation I'm giving right now. It keeps me top of mind with people. It helps them to understand what it is that I do. And it makes sure that when they have a need for something I can fix, they call me. In every one of my emails, there's a call to action. And there's a button you can click to schedule a call. There's a lot of things. Call to action is a very important aspect of all of this. You post it everywhere. And I'm going to talk about how you do that in just a minute. But again, I know this sounds like I'm making a lot of work for you, but in a moment, I'm going to show you how it's still going to be work, but it's going to be less than you think. The sincere advocate is truly focused on helping their clients and their prospects, their tribe, if you will. If you have not read a book called Tribes, I highly recommend it. You genuinely advocate for the success of your clients, prospects, and others by that they can get their questions answered and their problems solved with your free information. Still in all, people understand that you're in business to make a profit. Sooner or later, somebody's going to have to pay you to solve their problem. And at the end of this presentation, I'm going to show you how you can do that without being pushy or salesy. It's another thing that's unfortunate, that a lot of business owners resist the idea of being promotional, particularly self-promotional. And finally, the trusted authority is, Linda talked about trust a little while ago. And I've heard a lot recently, and particularly since the COVID, the advent of the pandemic, that of know, like, and trust, it seems as though trust is the most important, always has been, but you might actually need to lead with that rather than trying to warm people up with it by starting out trying to, make sure they can know who you are, like who you are, and then come to trust you. Trust is critical. These three words here, now Linda may recognize these words, but these three words were cited by Aristotle in ancient Greece as the three elements required for a public speaker to succeed: ethos, logos, and pathos. I'll start with logos. Logos means you know what you're talking about. Claude understands the local real estate market. He knows the numbers cold. Ethos means You can trust me. I'm not here to take your money. I'm here to help you. And if it's not a good match, I'll walk away. And pathos means it's something that you really care about, you're passionate about. And if you can bring together the logos, ethos, and pathos, you will be that trusted authority. Now, here's one of the reasons why you don't like this whole idea, is because you don't speak all of these languages. And I understand that. I didn't either. And at some level, you may decide, there's two things I would say about it. One is start with one platform that you do feel good about, have engaged with in the past, and feel comfortable with and think your clients are there. And over time, you can spread out to additional ones, but it's best to succeed in one first. So my solution to creating content, that's what we're talking about here, is content marketing, is to first create FAQs, frequently asked questions, I'll describe in a moment. Next is solution stories. And after you've generated those, repurpose them across multiple platforms. Now, as I mentioned earlier, all of us business owners solve problems. If we didn't have a customer with a problem, we wouldn't have a business. No matter what you do, you solve problems. And generally speaking, one-on-one, if we can get in front of you, we can learn a lot about building or settling real estate transactions or whatever it is. But when you're busy doing something, or we're in another state, or we are busy doing something, how are we going to get answers to those questions? Probably not from you if you're not following what I'm suggesting here. Online, we're not such great problem solvers. We're not very accessible. And as a result, all of that knowledge is locked in our brain and in our heart. It's, as they would say, keeping your light under a bushel. You could have helped millions. You could have been a contender, but no, because you didn't want to put the time and trouble into this. And I understand why. I'm not saying that it's not reasonable to avoid it. So let's start with frequently asked questions. Every business has or hears, every business owner hears between 5 and 10 questions over and over and over again. What you need to do is put together a 2-minute written video or audio answer. Ask the question and answer it. And then you can send these out as individual PDFs, blog posts, email messages, social posts, etc. You can create what's called a lead magnet. When somebody has that question, they type it into Google, it pops up, you have the exact same question in the title of your document, they get the answer. But you can also proactively distribute it. Something called solution stories. This is a term I've coined, where we start with the problem and we go through the solution and the beneficial outcome. I recently produced a video for a company that does radon testing. The problem was the house had to be tested before settlement could occur. The company was called in. They placed the radon testing device. They took it back after 48 hours, checked the readings, and it turned out in this case that the radon levels were low enough that the closing could proceed. It basically starts out like a lot of fairy tales. It was a dark and stormy night. We couldn't sell our house until we got radon testing. And it ended with, they lived happily ever after. They sold the house and moved on. Again, these stories can be told in text, video, audio, etc. Now, how am I going to get this out to every platform? And I will tell you what I do is I put the exact same story with the exact same text and the exact same photographs and links in every platform. The same thing is in my email, that's in my blog post, that's in my LinkedIn post, that's in my Twitter post, that's in my Facebook post, you name it. And instead of having to rewrite the story every time, you have to make certain adjustments, like Twitter has a character limit. But once you have the story captured, it's very easy to repurpose it. I have one set of stories I distribute weekly and another set I distribute daily. Now, let me give you a couple of examples of people who, you may say, well, this all sounds great, but where's the money? Well, I don't know how many of you guys know Gus Christofi here from Cosmos Heating and Cooling, but he and his son, George, took the leap to position themselves as a trusted authority in the HVAC space, and their sales went up 68% once they positioned themselves as the trusted authority because they're the ones who wrote the book. I don't really have time to go into the details of it, but I will just tell you that for many homeowners, getting a HVAC done is very expensive, but they don't really see any reason why they should choose one contractor over another. They chose Gus and George because they're the ones who wrote the book. I had another client, Martin Sines, who has become a nationally recognized authority on something that's called distressed note investing. And he currently is generating hundreds of thousands of dollars in revenue in consulting fees and through investments as a result of positioning himself that way. Conrad Bosmans is a client of mine who landed an $18,000 consulting agreement, was $3,000 a month for 6 months after appearing on a single podcast. Now, even without those types of home run stories, there's a tremendous amount of value to be gained by positioning yourself as the generous educator, the sincere advocate for the success, and the trusted authority. And we can help you. I hope you won't mind me giving you, being that we're all business owners here, a little commercial message. And this is how you as well can present free information and still use it as a marketing and sales tool. What we can do, I've shared a lot of free information for you with you here today, but we can also teach you specifically one-on-one through one-on-one coaching or group coaching, how you can do this yourself. We can also help you and your team to do it, or we can handle the whole thing for you from soup to nuts. So that's what we do here at Digital Media Positioning.